Hello?
Yes po, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sige. Okay. We are now on a new topic. How do we establish diplomatic missions? Yung mga embassies, consular offices, we call them diplomatic missions, okay? So when we send out people abroad to establish diplomatic relations, we call them diplomatic missions. So we establish diplomatic mission by mutual consent. So sino yung mutual? When you say mutual consent, there are two parties, di ba? So mutual consent of whom? Of the sending state, the one who are sending the missions, and the receiving state, the one who will host the mission. Okay, so when asked how do states establish diplomatic mission, the answer is we establish diplomatic mission by mutual consent. So is there a possibility that we can establish diplomatic relations without agreeing to establishing diplomatic mission? The answer is yes. Because the consent to establish diplomatic mission and the establishment of diplomatic relation are different. Diba? In fact, may mga bansa nga that we have diplomatic relation but we do not have diplomatic missions. Example of which are yung mga African countries. Yung ating diplomatic mission in South Africa, siya na yung diplomatic mission natin for the 17 other African states. Because it is very costly to establish diplomatic mission, so minsan isa na lang for many states. Diba? Okay, what are the functions of diplomatic mission? So when we say we are establishing a diplomatic mission, ito yung mga functions yan. Ito yung mga reasons for sending diplomatic mission. One is to represent the sending state. Next is to protect the receiving state the interest of sending state. That's why we establish diplomatic mission dun sa mga lugar na maraming Filipino citizens. Because we are protecting the interest of our nationals and of course the state. So, hindi tayo magpa-establish ng diplomatic mission doon sa mga lugar na wala naman tayong interest. Wala naman tayong business doon, wala naman tayong mga nationals doon. Merong isang, I think it's Hungary. Wala siyang diplomatic mission dito sa Pilipinas. Ang diplomatic mission niya ay nasa Malaysia pa yata. So if you would want to process visa for Hungary, you would go there pa. Ganon. So ganun din yung other states. Kasi wala naman sila masyadong citizens dito sa Philippines. So it is not to their advantage kung mag-establish silang diplomatic mission. So yung may mga embassies dito, yan yung mga madaming stake. May high stake sila rito sa Philippines. Diba? You have here yung embassy ng Japan, embassy ng US, embassy ng embassy ng China. Yung ibang mga consular offices lang. So, may mga bansa naman na may isa tayong embassy, marami tayong consular offices. Katulad ng Saudi, at least, I think meron tayong 4 na consular offices diyan. May isa sa Riyadh, may isa sa Jeddah, meron pang 2 sa mga malalaki nilang, sa mga states na marami talaga mga Pilipino. So, because that is the purpose. Another function is to negotiate with the government of the receiving state. Third is to ascertain by lawful means the conditions in development in the receiving state and report thereon on the government of the receiving state. So this is different from spying. This is, you just report to the sending government. What are the conditions there? Especially kapag halimbawa papalapit yung state visit ng ating presidente, kailangan may may additional intel na yan from the diplomatic missions. Ano kaya yung mga interest nitong bansa na to para sa diplomatic talks, mas madali yung usapan nila. Diba? We usually send people to other countries who are already, who can already speak the language because that is an advantage if you can communicate in the foreign language or in the language that they speak. Diba? Mas madali naman talaga yung mas madali yung diplomatic relations. Kaya lang, before, yung mga head ng diplomatic missions used to be talagang they are well versed with diplomatic missions, but in the past years it has become political appointments na mga political appointees, even those who have no background in foreign relations, even those who have no knowledge of the language, who have no it has become a political decision, the decision of the head of our state. Kaya ganyan. Pero sana wag nilang gawin, especially sa mga bansa na napaka-crucial na magkaroon tayo ng magandang relationship like China. It's very important that the person we send there understands the language, can speak and can write Chinese. Diba? Okay. Lastly is to promote friendly relation between the sending state and the receiving state. These are all the important functions of diplomatic missions. Aside from the 5, there are also additional functions added by Article 45 and 46 of the Diplomatic Convention. This is, if the diplomatic relation is severed, it may entrust the protection of its national to the diplomatic mission of a third state. So, ganun din. Halimbawa, di ba, the diplomatic relation of Ukraine and Russia was severed. So, who will take care now of the citizens of Ukraine who are still in Russia? Although may call naman for them to be repatriated before the war broke out. Pero kung yung mga naiwan, di ba, they may be entrusted to a third state who are willing to take on these citizens. Like example, halimbawa, if US would like to take in the citizens of Ukraine who are trapped in Russia. Diba? Okay. And second is, it may protect the interests of the third state who has no diplomatic relations. So, pwede rin. Halimbawa, wala pang diplomatic relation yung third state. Example, North Korea, wala siya diplomatic relations to the rest of the world. It may entrust its interest to a third party like China, who will be willing to take care of its interests. So these are the additional functions of diplomatic mission. Apart from their own interest, they may also take care of the interest third state of another state with their consent or with the consent of the two parties. Okay, diplomatic mission may perform consular functions. Iba yung consular functions. Subject to the following rules. Members of the diplomatic mission exercising consular functions shall continue to be governed by the diplomatic convention as to the privileges and immunities and by the consular convention. So, pag the diplomatic mission is performing consular functions, dalawa na yung mga nag-govern sa kanya, the diplomatic convention plus the consular convention. Okay, exercise of consular functions shall be in accordance with the consular convention, and the names of the members of the diplomatic mission performing consular functions shall be notified to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the receiving state. Okay. Diplomatic mission may primarily address or deal with local authorities of the receiving state if allowed by the receiving state. It may also deal with central authorities of the state. Okay, so yung number 4, this pertains to the situation where ang receiving state is a federal state or yung federal government, di ba? At ang alam natin sa federal government, ang diplomatic relations or ang foreign relations is being handled by the federal government, diba? And all other affairs are governed by the state government. So, halimbawa sa United States, ang handle ng federal government is the national security, the monetary and banking systems, the foreign relations, at saka may isa pa eh, the federal taxation or the national taxation. Yun. All the rest ay handled na by the state government. Diba? So, kung ang diplomatic mission will also perform consular functions, they may also deal with the central authorities of the state or the federal government. Depende kasi kung saan sila mag-i-establish ng diplomatic mission. So usually naman yung mga bansa nag-aano sila ng mga lugar na dito yung mga political offices. Halimbawa in Switzerland, ang seat of government and ang political offices, ang offices where diplomatic missions are in Geneva. In the United States, it's in Washington. Diba? Except for nasa New York. So yun, magpag-uusapan nila. So diplomatic mission na natin nasa Europe, ay nasa New York, aside from the federal state, they will also have to deal with the state government of New York. So sila mag-establish ng diplomatic mission. Okay, so aside from consent of the state, they will also need to obtain exequatur. It is an authorization given by the sovereign of the receiving state to exercise function within that territory. Example, Switzerland. Sa Switzerland, meron silang mga tinatawag na canton. Yung mga canton, ito yung mga states. Meron silang 26 cantons. So if you will be establishing a diplomatic mission, let's say in the canton of Zurich, you will also have to receive an exequatur from the canton officials, allowing you to exercise function within its territory. Okay, so kanina sinabi natin ano yung functions. These are naman the duties. So for every right, there is a responsibility. And it is a responsibility of the diplomatic mission to respect the laws of the receiving state and not to interfere in the internal affairs of the state. So regardless ng opinion nila of the recent election, they will just have to report it to their boss. But they cannot comment on national media. They are not satisfied with the result of the election. They are not happy with the result of the election. So yung mga ganyang congratulatory messages, that is expected. Diba? Otherwise, the next government may just throw them out of the Philippines. Remember, diplomatic missions are established by mutual consent. If we withdrew that consent, then the sending state will have no option but to repatriate or but to recall their diplomatic missions. Okay, duties of diplomatic mission. Under Article 7 of the Diplomatic Convention, the sending state may freely appoint the members of the diplomatic mission. However, under Article 7, it requires the approval of the names of the military, naval, or air attaché by the receiving state. So all other staff, pwedeng sila na mamili. Pero yung ibang mga officers like the military, naval, and air attaché dapat aprobahan ng receiving state. Kapag dinay, they are not obliged to give the reason for the denial. If the head of the mission is not yet present in the territory, the agreement may still be revoked even if it has already been given. So, pwedeng i-withdraw anytime by declaring that person persona non grata. Why do we seek, bakit meron muna bago ipadala yung mission, mauuna muna yung mga papel. So, these will be the members of the diplomatic mission, ganyan. Bakit nauuna yung ganon? Kasi nga, para maiwasan yung pagkapahiyaan na ipadala mo na pagdating sa airport, they will be refused entry, di ba? Nakakahiya din dun sa sending state. So, para maiwasan yung ganon, nagpapadala na agad ng mga tinatawag na, and if they receive exequatur, then that'll be the only time that they will travel to the receiving state para hindi nakakahiya kapag they are refused entry. Okay, the state may accredit the head of mission to more than one state. Pwede multiple recognition. In case of double or multiple accreditation, the diplomatic mission where the head of the mission does not have his permanent seat may be headed by a chargé d'affaires ad interim. So, example, Belgium had one head of mission represented in more than 69 states and the US in more than 6 states. Dito yan. So, this is what I'm telling you about. Ito, Nairobi, Kenya is also accredited to East African states. Okay, sa atin, ano pa ba yung mga... Okay. The same person may also be accredited as head of mission for 2 or more states. So, I think I've explained that. So, the receiving state may exercise its right to declare the head of mission as persona non grata anytime for whatever reason, and it has no obligation to explain. So, kapag na-declare na persona non grata yung head of mission, walang ibang magagawa kundi to recall. What is the size of the diplomatic mission? The size is to be determined by agreement of the sending parties, the sending state and the receiving state. Okay, these are the heads of the mission. They may be headed by an ambassador or nuncio. They may be headed by an envoy, ministers, internuncios, chargé d'affaires accredited by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We have what we call DIN, or the DOYEN of diplomatic mission. This was established by practice. They are the head of mission who enjoys seniority on account of date of arrival. So, kung sino yung earliest to arrive, they become the dean or the doyen. Okay. Chargé d'affaires ad interim. So, ito nga, yung binabanggit natin kanina, na kapag yung head of the mission could not stay is accredited in 2 or more states, and yung mga places where he cannot stay, that post is to be headed by a chargé d'affaires ad interim. Okay, use of flag and emblem. So, as a rule, the only flag that can fly in the territory of a state is the flag of that state. So, the use of the flag and an emblem is included in the rights of the diplomatic mission. Once they are granted of the right to establish a mission, they are also granted of the right to fly their own flag and to use their emblem within the territory, within the office that they're occupying. Okay, so pwede rin gamitin yung flag and emblem sa vehicle na ginagamit ng diplomatic mission. But it does not extend to public transport used by the head of the mission. You will know kung yung head of the mission ay nandun sa loob ng sasakyan na vehicle because they are required to fly the flag. Nakalabas yung flag. When the head of the mission is not inside the vehicle or not inside the car, i-cover nila yung flag. Makikita niyo yan, yung flag na nandun sa harap ng sasakyan, naka-cover siya ng black cloth. So that is an indication that the head of the mission is not driving the private transport. Okay, so these are among the rights of diplomatic missions. One is inviolability of diplomatic premises. So ano ibig sabihin ng inviolability of diplomatic premises? What do you mean by that? Anyone? Inviolability of diplomatic premises. Right, ito ng diplomatic mission, ha?
Ma'am, baka try lang po. Pag inviolability po, meaning yung premises po or kung saan nagsistay yung diplomatic mission, bawal po siyang pasukin ng authority ng receiving state.
Yes, precisely. Bawal siyang, meron tayong duty under the diplomatic convention to respect the premises of the diplomatic mission. Thus, we cannot enter without their consent. Kahit nga nasusunog yung diplomatic mission, so we can only enter to assist them if they ask for help. That's why, kapag nagrarally, di ba, sa embassy, why are we sending police officers with 100 meters from the gate of the embassy to prevent the protesters from coming closer to the diplomatic premises? Because we have an obligation under the diplomatic convention to protect the premises of the diplomatic missions. So that includes, syempre, yung hindi ma-intrude o ma-disturb yung peace ng diplomatic mission. Kapag ito, ang mga nagrarally na to, nakalapit sila, kinalampag yung gates ng diplomatic mission, ay diplomatic premises, meron tayong pananagutan under the diplomatic convention. Kaya yung establishment of diplomatic mission is by mutual consent because once we accepted them, we are already assuming these responsibilities. Pinapasok mo yan dito sa Pilipinas, pinayagan mo mag-establish yung diplomatic mission, dapat protektahan mo. Actually, yung pagsusunog ng mga American flag sa labas ng embassy, that is punishable under the diplomatic convention. Bawal yung pagsusunog ng mga effigy, So the most that we can do, actually, because we cannot prevent these people from protesting, the most that we can do is that to prevent them lang from coming closer to the Yung mga ganong bagay, pag nasa labas pa ng diplomatic premises, pananagutan yun ng receiving state. Yung nasa loob na ng diplomatic premises, bago tayo makapasok doon, we have to ask for their permission first. You have to ask for their consent. Dahil baka nasusunog yan. Unless tumawag sila sa atin for help, hindi tayo pwedeng tumulong. Hindi tayo pwedeng pumasok at tumulong sa kanila. Diba? But of course, pwede na lang i-standby yung mga at least as a show of good faith na anytime that you will be needing our help, ito, nandito na kami. Diba? Okay. So, and of course, we are expecting the same from them, di ba? We are expecting na yung pinadala din natin na diplomatic missions din sa head ng state nila ay sa state nila will be accorded the same respect and will be accorded the same protection that we are giving them their diplomatic missions here in the Philippines. Okay? No legal writs may be served within the premises. So yung mga nasa loob na ng embassy, they are already free from the intrusion of kahit mga warrant o pares hindi pwedeng iserve yan. Kasi technically, the diplomatic premises is already outside the jurisdiction of the receiving state. It becomes an extension of the property of the sending state. So technically, you can go out of the Philippines without actually going out of the Philippines. If we are just talking of jurisdiction, because once you enter the embassy of other states, in the Philippines. They are an extension of their territory. Once you use a foreign aircraft, that is an extension of the territory of the flag that these carriers are flying. So if that is a Swiss Air, that is an extension of the Swiss territory. If that is an American Airlines, then that is an extension of the American territory. Ganun yun, technically, So you don't have to go out of the Philippines to be actually out of the Philippines. Okay, so no legal rates may be served within the premises. Same is true with Filipinos. Kaya yung mga Pilipino natin na nakakatakbo sa embassy, mga tumatakas sa amo nila, hindi na sila doon pwedeng hapulin yung mga amo nila. Bawa kahit nagnakaw pa yan, pumatay pa yan, pag nasa embassy natin yan, hindi na yan nila pwedeng mahabol, mahuli. Because no legal processes may be allowed inside the diplomatic premises. Okay, this inviolability extends even to the private residence of the head of the diplomatic mission. So kasama pati papers, correspondence, and property, professional and commercial property na to, private, professional, and commercial nature, kasama yan sa inviolable. Okay? So kasama pati yung mga land ancillary thereto, hindi lang yung mismong opisina or building. Kung yan ay nasa loob ng compound, may mga lands doon, pati yung mga lands na yun kasama sa inviolable. Okay. Pati yung persons of the diplomatic agent shall be inviolable. Okay. So I've already explained this. Okay. So meron na hostage case. It is an ICJ case, International Court of Justice. Ang question is, can a diplomatic agent caught in the act of committing an assault, can he be briefly arrested? The answer is yes. The purpose is to protect then that agent, not really to make him answerable for what he did, but to protect him lang from possibility of retaliation. So yun. That is the reason why he is being arrested. Okay, diplomatic mission, kasama pati paper, correspondent, private residence. Okay, aside from inviolability, they are also immune from jurisdiction sa application ng substantive laws. Ang exemption lang dito sa immunity from jurisdiction is yung mga civil and administrative cases na they are handling on personal basis. Yan, bawa nakasuhan ng civil because of the property that they own, yan, or mga marital matters, yun, hindi na yun kasama sa immunity from jurisdiction. Yeah, for dealings with private property that they own under personal capacity, yan, hindi kasama sa. Okay, who are the persons entitled to immunity from jurisdiction? Aside from the head of the mission, kasama pa rin yung members of the family of the diplomatic agent forming part of their household. As to criminal jurisdiction, pati yung mga administrative and technical staff of the diplomatic mission, members of the service staff, and diplomatic missions, with respect to acts performed in the course of their duties, they are immune from jurisdiction. I think Okay. Can the immunity from jurisdiction be waived? Yes. However, the waiver must be made by the sending state and it must be expressed. Meaning, hindi pwedeng i-waive ng tao. Halimbawa, sabihin ni Ambassador, I'm waiving my immunity from jurisdiction. No, that could not, that will not hold water. Such waiver will not hold water because the waiver must be made by the sending state. Because remember, all these privileges are accorded to these people with respect to their job. So talagang ito ay binibigay talaga sa state, hindi talaga sa mga individuals. So the waiver could not be made by the individual, but only by the state. Okay, so diplomatic agent may be called as a witness, but they are not really obliged to give evidence as a witness. So whether or not they will be allowed, it is still the sending state that can give consent as to whether or not they can testify in the interest of justice. Okay. No measures of execution may be taken in respect of a diplomatic agent. So pasok pa rin ito dun sa mga immunity of diplomatic agent from execution. So mula sa serving ng summons hanggang sa trial, up to the execution, meron silang immunity. Okay, another right is the freedom of movement of the members of the diplomatic mission. It is the duty of the receiving state to ensure that all members of the mission are free to move and to travel within its territory, but of course, subject to the laws of the receiving state. Ibig sabihin, they may be free to travel kapag nag-impose tayo, halimbawa ng lockdown, kasama sila doon. Di ba? Kasama sila doon sa pwedeng i-prohibit yung movements for a certain period of time for public security or for public health. Okay, they also enjoy freedom of communication. So, to protect their rights to freedom of communication, meron sila, hindi mo pwedeng i-intercept, hindi mo pwedeng i-interrupt yung kanilang free communication for all official purposes. Yung official correspondence nila shall be inviolable. If you watch that movie, yung From Russia with Love ba yun? Diba yung nilagay yung mga barel doon sa bag, tapos nilagyan na diplomatic bag yon, at hindi na na-inspect yung bag na yon kasi nga you cannot inspect the personal effects tsaka mga luggages ito mga diplomatic agents eh. So kaya kahit maglagay na dyan ng mga armas, maglagay na dyan ng mga illegal drugs, in fact sina Escobar for a time nga, ang ginagamit nilang mga mule ay mga para sa kanilang drug trade, mga taga-embassy. Because they know that yung bags ng mga diplomatic agents are not being searched. They are not to be opened or they are not to be detained. Okay, this is unconditional. The purpose is to make really the diplomatic bag inviolable. Ibig sabihin kahit pa may tip na there's something harmful inside that bag, you still cannot open that without violating the Geneva Convention, the diplomatic convention. Okay, aside from inviolability, they are also exempt from taxes. All the properties of the sending state are exempt from taxes, whether it is national, regional, municipal dues, or taxes. So, ang hindi lang sila exempted dun sa mga indirect taxes na kasama na usually sa price. Like, diba, yung mga VAT. Pag bumili sila ng items na merong VAT, hindi na sila exempted doon. Yung sa mga dues and taxes nila for private income nila, hindi nakasama. Capital taxes on investments that they had made, hindi nakasama yung mga yan. Okay. When do these privileges and immunities start? It starts from the moment the person entitled enters the territory of the receiving state and take up his post. So that is the start of all these privileges and immunities. So when does it end? It ends within the reasonable period from the time he leaves the receiving state or upon the expiration of a reasonable period for him to do so. So, malinaw yon. When does it end? When does it start? When does it end? When does the function of the diplomatic agent cease? Upon notification of the sending state to the receiving state. And on notification of the receiving state to the sending state that that person was declared persona non grata, then the function of that official ceased. Okay, what are the other causes? Pwedeng death, pwedeng severance of diplomatic relations. Yeah, those are the causes of termination of diplomatic relations. Okay, what's the nationality of the members of the diplomatic mission who were born on the receiving state? Pinanganak doon sa receiving state. Child born of members of diplomatic mission member, regardless of rank, are not nationals of the receiving state. Thus, they do not automatically acquire the nationality of the state by reason of birth within its territory. Also, the woman member of the mission does not acquire solely by marriage the nationality of the husband. So, wait. I think that's it. So, ito yung natin ng diplomatic. Do you have any questions regarding establishment of the diplomatic missions? Questions? Three, wala? Walang tanong? Alright, kung wala, merong dumating after I check the attendance?
Petalvero po, ma'am.
Sorry?
Petalvero.
Petalvero, who else?
Eva po.
Nieva.
Nagrampa po.
Ano po? Nagrampa?
Opo.
Who else?
Oteiza po.
Oteiza. Sino pa? Wala na? Okay. Kung wala na kayong tanong, I'll see you guys next meeting.